Right, good morning and welcome to another episode of the CEO Story. And we've got quite an interesting tale today. So we've got Victor Pryshlyak, and I'm sorry about the pronunciation of that, from United Software. Victor's an amazing individual. He's got a great background of experience, multi-international, has lived in many different places. He's got a great story to share with us. So Victor, thank you so much for joining us. How have you been doing?
Thanks for having me, Casey. I've been doing great this week. How you doing today?
I'm blessed. Every day above ground is a blessed day, right? So let's kick it off. So why don't you start by sharing a little bit about United Software? I know that that's been around for a few years now, but you've got a whole host of experience before you got to that. But let's start there, and then we can work our way back.
Sure. Yeah, this company is 3.5 years old. It grows fast, and I'm pretty sure that every guest that you have here, they're talking about the success of their company. We can say that we are successful. We're roughly 300 people. Wouldn't talk about revenue, but we keep doubling in size every year. We're gonna be 1,000 people in 2025. Already worked with a few public companies, have over 40 clients and some big names there. The model that we designed was basically a disruptive model for the outsourcing business. We don't think that the traditional outsourcing companies, they have a bright future because the world is changing, especially after COVID. There's a lot of companies who went remote and they really want to have their own teams worldwide. We are focused on building teams in Eastern Europe, and the model that we're using, it's called BOT, or Build, Operate, Transfer. That means that we build a team for a tech company in Eastern Europe, and a completely transparent model where they can negotiate salary directly with the engineers that we hire. We take our flat fee that covers the operational cost. And the beauty is that they can buy out the team. So basically, it's like a lease before you buy or rent before you buy.
Yeah, smart.
And this is what actually puts us apart from a traditional companies and gives us a big growth.
Amazing. I love it. So to use EOS terminology, you've got a few different uniques there that makes you stand very differently to most of the competitors that I know a few of them, but not many. What made you come up with this, or how did you figure out that this was like a really good niche to differentiate yourself from everyone else?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's been a big struggle. I'm always passionate working with any company, no matter if I own the company or work for the company. I still try to be working 100%, right? So I was working for a previous company. I want to mention the name, but it's a traditional outsourcing company. Actually, I can mention the name. It's called Alex. It's the global company. And basically what I came across, and it's not only me, it's also my co-founders, they've been working for similar companies worldwide, is that the traditional way on the service companies, they do business. In our mind, there's a conflict of interest when the service company, which makes money on hourly rates, is trying to provide a solution or do business with the tech company, and the tech company has a completely different goal. They want to do things on time and on budget because this is their baby, this is their startup. They want everybody to care about this baby. And this is, in a nutshell, this is wrong, right? So basically, if one body is making money on hourly rates and the other one want to do something on time and on budget, it's in a priori cannot be a successful partnership.
Connected, right? The two sides.
Exactly. So we just said, like, how do we connect the people that work in this outsourcing space or outstaffing space and the business? And there's nothing better than having your own engineers, but not everybody is Google or Amazon who can get the best of the best in Silicon Valley, right? There are a lot of great companies in the US and in Silicon Valley specifically that really want to have great engineers, and they know that Eastern Europe is rich of talent, but they just do not have this easy way to kind of build and own their own team. This is what we do.
It's so crazy that we're having this conversation right now, because we're literally going through this at the moment where we created a new piece of technology for our website, and it's a tax calculator. So it needed some special code, servers, and all of this stuff I have no idea about. So we hired a company to do that for us. But again, like you said, we're paying them on an hourly rate. They've never done this before. So what we found out after the fact was that we're effectively paying their hourly rate for their staff to train to do what we need, rather than hiring the person that's already done it 1,000 times. and could do it in 1 hour rather than 10 hours. And I'm paying the bill for that.
That's exactly right. And they would always try to give you more people because this is how they make their own money, right? So they would try to give you like an added value they call like the, business analyst or the QA, or they would try to extend you the team. So the more
That's
people
exactly
work
what
there,
happened. So we had one engineer, and the guy was in India. He was really good, but I couldn't understand what he was speaking in coder language, and I'm giving him simple instructions in layman's term, simple English, and it just wasn't getting through. So we then hired a US based project manager to kind of do the translation of English to code language and execution. And it's like, then you get another layer of an hourly rate. And I was like very frustrated by the whole thing. And the thing that I got out of it the most was you have to hire the right team, especially as you scale and get bigger. And CPAs, lawyers, all part of your team. Is like when you've outgrown your professional team, then you need to upgrade the team. And that goes not just for tech, not just for CPAs, accounting, strategy stuff, but the whole team around you, right? The team that's got you where you are today is not the same team that's going to get you where you want to be in the future.
That's right. And, it's as I said, there's nothing better than having, like, imagine that those people that you hired in India, they were your employees. Like they had exactly the same interest in this website or the calculator being successful. So this is what we try to do. We try to align the interests. And often our engineers are getting stock options or equity of the products they work with. That actually creates a completely different experience for them first, right? So they don't need to relocate it and move to a different country to create a successful career. They can still live in the country they are based, and they can be working with a cool company out of the Western world.
Really smart, really. Okay, so what I'm hearing is to get the staff to become more vested and not drag out time, they're getting compensated and then potentially hired. But then also on top of that, they're getting the kicker of equity in each project. So if one of them goes to the moon, they could become very wealthy.
Exactly right. So I am Ukrainian. I was born and raised in Ukraine, and I see that there are a lot of great engineers. So not only engineers, there are a lot of great people in Eastern Europe in general. And Ukraine is going through the
Czech Republic, Serbia, Poland, all of the Microsoft's got huge headquarters out there, right?
So there's a reason why they go there, right? Because they try to kind of, to take the ownership of those engineers, because the only way for those engineers to be successful is either to relocate to a different country, like to the US. This is what happens in India as well, or basically join a company like ours where they don't have to relocate, but still be compensated like if they are relocated. So they still live like rock stars in Eastern Europe. They get good life, work-life balance, but they work for a great company. So this is the mission that we have. We want to basically connect great companies and great engineers together.
I love it. So what I'm really taking away from this is the value that you place on these guys is not just an hourly employee paycheck to paycheck. You're really investing back in them so that they're in a more comfortable place. You're telling them that they are of very high value to you, making them feel comfortable and ultimately performing better and better. And everybody wins. The client wins because they get a product on time that they like. You guys win because you have high retention of staff. And then eventually that transitions to the staff winning because they get a percentage, they feel comfortable. It sounds like a really good mixture.
Yeah, so two simple things that we solve for businesses. It's basically the attrition rate, which is very high in the world right now. So there's very low loyalty to the brand, no matter if you're Netflix or Google or Amazon. Like as long as somebody's coming with better job offer, he's gone. So we basically help them to retain people in Eastern Europe, and there is a reason why we have lower attrition rate or retention rate. The second point is scaling, right? So we have a lot of new clients who come in and they just raised some, round of funding, and they really need to have a great team, but fast. This is where we solve the problem. We can build, 15, 20, 30 people team in a quarter.
Wow. Okay. So you have the ability to scale up quickly. And that's another the recruitment and the reason. Process that you have boots on the ground, and good people know more good people and refer more people in, and it becomes an avalanche eventually, right?
Yep.
And that's great because that's how we've grown our company together, CFO. it literally it's referrals, client referrals, COI referrals, and it's so much stronger to build like that because people coming in have already heard how life is on the other side of the fence, right? Or the grass is greener on the other side, as a lot of people say. But if they know that and they've felt that, or they have a friend there, then it makes people transitioning in a lot better. And ultimately, it raises the bar for everybody now, because if your competitor down the street knows that you're doing this, they've got to increase their standards. So the people doing the actual work at the end of the day benefit the most, because now everyone's going to eventually, and obviously that will take time, but give them a better deal.
Yeah, it's well, glad that you mentioned referrals. You know, what we have also noticed is that bad clients bring bad clients and good clients bring good clients. So basically, it's also important to understand what kind of clients do you really want to have as a client, and then basically
100%.
focus on the referrals.
So true. I have a saying that I use is like attracts like. So if you're going to use bad clients and good clients, or good energy and bad energy, whatever that is, like whatever you're putting out into the universe is what ultimately what comes back, right?
Yep.
So let's kind of rewind it a little bit now. So we talked a little bit about United Software. We've got some great nuggets of information, but you didn't always run this multi-million-dollar company, and you started off in many different places. So can you kind of share at a high level your journey across the globe to get to where you are now in LA, and the ups and downs along the way?
Yeah. So my first company that I was working for was called Beeline. It was Eastern European cell phone company, or the telecom company. I would compare it to like AT&T of Middle East or Verizon of Middle East. That I just basically learned this basic sales experience. This is where I became like a sales rep, and I can tell you that I'm a sales guy or sales rep by nature. This is what I was trained to do, even though I never liked that in the beginning, but then it just clicked. I was working there for 2 years, get some basic experience, and that was recruited for by a company called Miatech. This is Portland, Oregon-based company that is. So
where was the phone company based?
It was in Ukraine. This is where I was.
They found
was my first job
from Ukraine, a company from Poland, from Portland.
Portland, yes, exactly. So there was a posting. They had an office in Ukraine, but I was working as a sales rep for the East Coast. So I was covering all the East Coast, starting from Montreal, Toronto, going down to Boston, up to almost Virginia. So and they were selling energy saving equipment for supermarkets. So like Whole Foods and Kroger and Walmart were my clients. And so those kind of companies, they it was a very niche product. If you ever seen a produce misting systems in the supermarkets where you've got the produce and there's a
cool. I wish more restaurants would have them. In Vegas, a lot of restaurants have them outside just to keep everyone cool. But
yeah, we call them people misters. Yeah.
Very
so
cool.
misting systems and the energy saving equipment for the night, like you called night shades, like you close down the refrigerators at night so they don't cool the warm supermarket, so you kind of save the electricity that way.
Very important.
So yeah, I've been working for a company for almost like 6 years, primarily based in the East Coast in New Haven, Connecticut, and it's been a great run, great journey, and get some really good connections, understanding of the U.S. market. As I said, I was born and raised in Ukraine, so this is where I got my first U.S. experience.
So were you basically, did you move at that point from Ukraine to America, or were you still based in Ukraine?
It's hard to say, because for the last 17 years I've been living on the airplane, so I'm all over the place. You know, I live. I'm in Ukraine right now. Like next week I'm in Dubai. A week after I'm in the US, and a week after I'm in Israel. So this is still my journey, right? So this is still how I live. So after Miatech of like 5 or 6 years, I don't remember, I joined this IT company, Alex. And this is where I basically was introduced to the IT industry, because I never knew what it is, but I know how to sell.
So you switched from sales of misters into sales of IT equipment?
It was not equipment, it was IT software solutions or custom software development. So basically I was looking for clients, no matter which industry they're in, but somebody who wants to build a product. Can be a startup, can be a big enterprise, it can be whoever. So So basically, this company had the R&D in Ukraine, but I was also covering. Actually, it was a global sales. I was head of business development there for Israel, Middle East, UK, and the US. So I was actually on a plane all my time.
Got it. Okay, so you're used to traveling. You're clocking up a lot of air miles by the sounds of it.
That's exactly right. Still have
So
this
if I'm
bonus
understanding
status.
it, you took your skill set from one industry. The skill set was sales specifically at the enterprise level, let's call it. And then you just put
Yep.
it into another industry, but you were still at a really high enterprise level of sales.
It's yeah, it's a little bit complicated because if you're a sales guy, they usually are. In my mind, there's only two types of sales guys, like farmers and hunters, right? So I'm hunter. I like bringing new logos. I like bringing new deals, new clients. And usually, as soon as I bring a new deal and it's stable, I actually pass it to the farmers. Actually, my partners are farmers, and in previous companies we had farmers. So basically, we're growing business, or often they call them account managers.
Yeah.
So I feel that I can do both, but I really like actually meeting new people and actually convincing them, and actually bringing new business. This is where my passion is.
Got it. So really great nugget there. So Victor knows exactly what he excels most at. He's good at many different things, right? And as an entrepreneur, you have to wear multiple hats. But he excels in building new relationships, nurturing them till the point of close, and then passing it on to other people so he can continue doing the thing that he's amazing at. And he's then built a team around him or with him that can then nurture that and continue it on. So you're always providing a level of service to the client, but you're excelling at your skill set, which is finding new, hunting and gathering, and then passing it off to the farmers to then create that deeper relationship and ongoing relationship year after year, crop cycle after crop cycle.
That's correct. And honestly speaking, I like hunting more than farming just because it's more exciting. It's more challenging. Like it's still, many people don't like that because it's basically you have a lot of rejections or objections, or people might be offensive, saying like, where do you get my phone number? Why would you bother me? It's because you're approaching.
So you cold call people straight up.
I'm using a company that helps me with outbound activities, but it's more about like setting up appointments and meeting people. And so often it can be like a failed appointment because, you might fly to Austin, Texas and see that the guy doesn't really need your services because you didn't qualify him on the phone. But actually there are like some ups and downs. But in our business, in our industry specifically, as soon as you nail a deal, like if you bring a deal, it's usually like a recurring revenue deal, right? So it's like as soon as you build a software engineering team, let's say a team of 10 engineers, you're like hitting like a $500,000 team with annual revenue. So basically farmers just need to make sure that team keeps working and keeps growing. So it's not like a short-term sales. Like it's like if you bring something, usually stays, right? So I'm after actually new clients, but the existing client base is growing as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So it's really great from a client retention perspective, and it puts the burden on the operations team because they've constantly got to keep expanding with every new client that's coming in by the sounds of it.
That's exactly right. This is one of the challenges that we had, and I know that we wanted to discuss challenges in this topic. So basically, one of the challenges is what in our business, we knew that we know how to sell, right? So basically, we're selling, we're bringing new logos, but then we didn't have a strong recruitment team, an HR team, and the operations team. We couldn't handle big invoices and finances, so the cash gaps were an issue. So there are a lot of kind of things that we had to fix, like step by step. And basically the first thing we had to fix was recruitment. So basically we built like a super cool recruitment team that actually now can hire 15 to 20, even to 30 engineers every month. Wow. Now it actually puts pressure on sales. Now I have to sell more. So as soon as I sell more, I have
excess capacity on the back end and it's gone full circle. So let's break that down because I think it's really, really useful. So step one was to dial in the sales team. So what did you do as subsets to really dial in that sales team to, like you said, qualify clients, go meet people, the life cycle, or kind of the cycle from the first identifying the client or potential client to closing a client? That's going to be a long time. So similar to us, we're high ticket items. You don't sell someone $1 million contract in a day or a week, right? It takes longer to develop that relationship. So can you break down what you guys did successfully that helped increase the sales velocity?
Yeah. So as I said, we knew that sales is our bread and butter, right? So we knew how to sell. Now we had to understand what are we selling and who do we sell it to, right? So basically we were trying to utilize the old connections that we had, but we figured that the old client base that we had is not ideal. That means it doesn't mean this ideal client. It's like you can sell something to them, and if there's non-compete that we had with companies, so we couldn't sell to existing clients of the previous companies. But even through the network, you can sell something. But then you ask like whether that's going to be a good client, because our model means that we are looking for a specific group of clients who know exactly what kind of people they're looking for. That actually narrows down the target audience from anyone who needs engineers to anyone who knows what to do with engineers. Because usually our client is a CTO of a mature tech company, like a fast growing business that knows exactly what they're looking for. So we basically went out and say, okay, who do we have in the network? So we try to figure out who would be the first clients. And we were lucky to get clients who we lost in the previous companies who kind of could gain them on our business. So this is how we got the first deal. And
so let me break that down in a kind of simple language. So you created the ideal client avatar of who would be a good fit. And then you went super specific because you didn't just keep it at any CTO based in America. You went into CTOs with experience that you knew could get success from what you were selling. So it's getting super, super detailed in the niche of who you're going for. And that takes a population of maybe 100 million and it takes it down to 1 or 2 million, right? So you're delivering a specific message that's going to resonate with that person. So yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So we started with using our own network, like personal network. So we went through the network, and I think we had a couple of hundred contacts, and we eventually landed with 2 to 3 contracts. One of them is still working with us, is our largest client called Card. That was the first client, is still the biggest client.
Amazing. That's a great story.
It's an amazing relationship. Yeah, they actually helped us to build business because they pretty much funded we are self-funded business. No, we didn't raise any capital. And it's been really hard to work with no salary for almost 2 years. But that's what the entrepreneurs do.
That's a really good point as well, is that most people don't see that side of it. They see, oh, you've got a multi-million-dollar business and you're doing great. You got all these employees, you got all these clients. But the reality is most people will invest pretty much everything back into the business to have it grow because they see the future value of that exploding, right? And you back yourself to do that. And there's many ways to do that, whether it's self-funding, crowdfunding, getting a bank loan or mortgaging a house. We're not giving financial advice here, but we're just showing that there is a sacrifice that has to be made for success. It doesn't just come to everyone overnight and away you go. So can you talk a little bit about the sacrifices you've made? Obviously, you travel a lot.
Sacrifices were, I was just getting married back in 2018, right before I founded my own company. So it's been really tough for the first year to basically live on the, I was doing consulting just to cover my bills. I was working for the other companies, actually competitors, to cover my bills. Wow. Because I couldn't pay my own salary for almost 2 years. Not just me, but it's actually the entire C-level of a company, which were at that point 3 guys. Now it's 4 or 5 even. But basically, we couldn't pay the bills because we pay, if a client doesn't pay you on time, that means that you have to pay an engineer anyway. Then you have to find money to pay an engineer. And then this is, we were taking loans and credits and stuff like that. So it took us, good 18 months to basically feel the ground and then start being a business. Even though you had revenue, you had clients, but the operational cost was high. You had to rent the office, you have to buy equipment, you have to have recruiters, HRs, and stuff like that. So basically it's been a tough journey for the first 18 months, but then slowly, one by one, because we're a low margin business, we don't make huge profit. We're roughly like 20% margin on top of what we charge our clients. So that doesn't leave you a lot of cash in the pocket. And we reinvest everything back to the business because we keep growing really fast. Like if you have a demand, you have to provide the supply. So what I can tell you is that, and then my advice to the entrepreneurs would be, whoever starts the business, don't even count on having a good salary for the first year at least, because if you plan to do it, you have to either come from a rich family that somebody's going to fund your business, or raise capital. If you're self-funded, it's extremely tough. I'm reading a book called Pumpkin Plan. I would strongly recommend people to read that book. It's about how do you grow the best pumpkin in New Jersey. There was a guy from New Jersey.
All right, we'll put the link to the video below in the YouTube so that people can give that a read.
Strongly recommend that one. But my experience is that the first 2 years it was pretty much break even. Even though business is growing, but you don't feel as you make money. But eventually, then as soon as you get through the critical mass, you have enough clients and enough engineers, and you have the operational costs covered, then when actually magic starts happening, because we keep growing fast, but now we feel that we make money.
Okay, so let me break that down then. So I'm hearing that there's a couple of things going on here. There's always a balance of sales versus operations, fixed overhead, variable overhead. But ultimately, what we're saying is cash flow. What we're saying is, if you've got 30-day terms with your clients and they still default and they go to 45 or 60 days, you've still got to pay that money to your staff, because you can't miss payroll, right? That is a huge no-no for any business owner. And being able to juggle all of these kind of balls in the air at any given time, it takes a masterclass to do that. So you're right, you've got to be funded, you've got to know what your run rate is, and it's really important to know what your numbers are and projected numbers, and then certainty of those projected numbers. And it sounds like overkill on numbers, but it really isn't, because you miss payroll once, you've lost credibility with your entire staff, and they will, in the back of their minds, think, will this happen again? Do I need to look for another job? Can I rely on this? Because they've got to pay rent, they've got families, they've got food. Everyone's got something going on. So if you don't understand your cash flow, your budgets, your forecasts, your projections, and your client relationships, because if a client says to you, hey, this invoice is due, but I'm stuck, I can't pay it for another 15, 30 days. That's a really valuable piece of information to know, because then you have a little bit of extra time to go find it somewhere else, whether that's credit cards, banks, friends, family. But if they just don't pay you and don't communicate with you, you're literally pulling your hair out, driving yourself crazy. So back to the importance of knowing your numbers, your projections, and your relationships, but also your working capital cycle. And what a working capital cycle is from the day you pay out money to the day you receive money. What's the time frame? What are the different steps between that? Understanding those numbers and being really close to them. And the second thing that I heard you say was you're a low margin, high volume business. And this is even more difficult. We're the opposite. We're high margin, low volume, more boutique style. And it doesn't give us that problem because we have enough padding in there. But if you're the other way around, which I think most companies are more similar to yours than they are to ours in terms of lower margins, higher volume, you've got to know what your critical mass or velocity is, so that one, you don't take on too many clients too soon without having the right infrastructure to service it. And then the flip side of that is you don't hire too many people too quickly without the clients to pay for it. So it's always a balancing act, whether we're talking about the numbers, the people, the systems and processes. It's a never-ending education of life, right?
Totally. And what I can tell you is that if you're an entrepreneur, you start wearing multiple hats when you run the business. And eventually what we started doing this year, we started giving away those hats to different people. So we do have a professional CFO who was working for Walgreens. And we have new head of recruitment. So we basically try to remove responsibilities away from us, because that's the only way you can scale your business.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that actually is the next step along. We talked about sales team and dialing that in, and then the numbers side being really critical. But delegation is really key. Also, a lot of entrepreneurs, they are the jack of all trades. But then when the company, let's say, gets past a couple of $1 million, it's too big for any one person to then take to 5 or 10 or 15. So you have to be able to delegate tasks out efficiently to people. And the way I deal with it is we use EOS operating system to help us, but I just had to get used to being okay with somebody else completing a task, maybe 80% of what I could do, but it getting done versus me having it on a to-do list forever. So that was the shift that I made in my own head. Have you had a similar experience, or how did it work with you bringing in the CFO, the head of recruiting, and making sure that they were the right people for your culture as well?
Yeah, it's hiring is another big challenge because it's you definitely, like, for example, every business needs a CFO, like pretty more, at least a part-time CFO, and every business needs like the operations guy or sales. Like it has to be, someone responsible for that. But how do you hire a person like that, or what would be the skills for that person?
Well, you would hire a company like mine to get a CFO, because we'd scale with you from part-time and then get you a full-time person.
There you go. And that's actually a very good solution. If we knew that company like yours existed back in 2019, we could have been in a better place. We could only hire a CFO 6 months ago, which is a professional CFO, because we knew exactly what this person needs to do. Because we're thinking about partial exit in 2025, and we are getting ready for it, right? So it has to have, right numbers. It has to have the right structure, portfolio of the clients, geography of the clients, revenue streams from, so there's a lot of things there are a lot of indicators that the company has to look at. But was it easy to give away the tasks? To be honest, it was super easy to give it to the CFO because that was the person we were looking for the most. It was hard to give it to head of recruitment first because we actually did recruitment manually. It was very hard to give it away because we had to micromanage the guy until he proved that he doesn't need to be micromanaged.
Let's talk about that then, because you've had two different experiences with very high level people in the company. What was so different about hiring a CFO versus maybe having systems and processes in place, a clear job description of what the actual deliverables were, and he knew how to do that, versus the HR sounds more people, more touchy-feely than maybe absolute black and white?
It was more about, so if we were really unsuccessful in the finance, right? So we always had delays in clients paying an invoice, which is a simple thing. You just have to have your own methodology. But as none of us has the background in finance, we are having background in account management and sales. We can send an invoice, we can follow up on the invoice, but create the process, which is smooth. It was not that easy. So as soon as the professional CFO joined the company, it was an instant click. Like he proved his competence in 30 days. And since then we didn't have any concerns. Like all of the clients, even the bad clients that we thought that they are bad, they're not that bad because the CFO basically fixed that. So we do have a very good experience. And I think it was a great choice that we made. Speaking of the recruitment,
problem solver, and he solved the problem very quickly. And that then helped build confidence from the ownership team.
Absolutely. So not only we started feeling comfortable, our clients started feeling much more comfortable because they knew that we are self-funded business, and they knew that we are struggling if they're not paying on time. But sometimes they just forget about that, right? So for them, it's not a priority. So you have just to have the right
system and process, right, to make sure that they're going to get a call if they're late on a payment.
But you know better than me that the CFO is just not the person who sends an invoice and collects that, right? So it's more about the projection. He gives us an advice, like what kind of client do you really want to have? Like, look at this client. Like, you're definitely not bad client or a good client. Did you take a look at this? I think
actually that's a good point. Let me break that down for people, because a lot of people might be getting confused about what a CFO does, what a controller does, and what a bookkeeper does. So we'll just take a quick second and explain the differences. So a bookkeeper is going to be more transactional. They're going to enter the invoices. They're going to reconcile bank statements and ultimately make sure QuickBooks or whatever software that you're using is tying off to your bank statements and everything's entered in the system. So think of it as kind of like a financial admin person. The next level above that is a controller level. And that person is going to take that information, look at it, and kind of give you some strategy or kind of some guidance on what is good, bad, and indifferent. The controller, then the next level above that would be a more strategic person, which is a CFO. And the CFO will look more at budgets, forecasts, and strategy level things and say, yes, we can make this investment. No, we can't. This is what our cash flow is like. This is what our run rate's like. And they're really the finance quarterback of the show, because they're pulling the strings and saying, yes, we can make this decision. We've got enough space. We've got enough buffer. And that then collaborates with the owners of the company to see where your comfort level is. Some people have a month-to-month comfort level. Some people have a year of excess cash flow sat there. So that's different within all companies. But just to break down the three sections of finances: bookkeeping, transactional, controller is kind of a hybrid of making sure that the transactions are entered correctly and that you can make some basic decisions with, and that the bills are getting paid and the day-to-day is operating. And then the high level is the CFO, when the strategy really comes in and it takes that team to the next level. That's kind of the three different roles that you'd need.
Yeah, and it depends on the size of the business. Like the role of the CTO might vary, but I believe that any business that needs to grow fast, they definitely need a CFO, because CEO or salesperson or operation person, they might get excited about this thing, right? Like if you're a tech company and you're run by a software engineer, they might get excited about the technology, not about the cost and the money in the bank and stuff like that. So I think that the role of the CFO is crucial for businesses like ours, and not only like ours, but in any business that needs to grow and needs to grow fast.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you know, back in the days, there wasn't such thing as fractional CFOs or fractional CMOs or CTOs, but there is now. You can hire really good talent at a fraction of the price, rather than a couple $100,000 for a good CFO or any C-suite person. And it's not really achievable for a lot of startups to do that. Like you said, you've got to grow into it. And one of the good things, or one of the things I'd recommend, is to have a clear, defined scope of work of what are the actionable items that you need solving, and then figuring out whether that's 5 hours a month, 1 hour a week, like how much time is it roughly going to take to do that task? And then you can go find the guy or girl that you need to fill that slot. But if you don't have an idea in your head of how long this task is going to take and how critical is it, is this a nice to have or is it an essential thing that you need right now? And ranking all that and having kind of everything documented and in order, then you're going to really struggle to find the right people, because you might bring in a rock star, but if you don't enable them and guide them into, hey, this is what we need to do first, second, and third, you're not going to get the most out of them, and it's just going to lead to a bad relationship.
Just to finish this part with the CFO, I think that basically a good CFO, even a part-time CFO, he's going to pay back real quick. Like he's going to pay for himself within a few months. Like if he's good, right? So your investment should be back in your bank real quick, just based on certain tweaks and projections and relationships with banks and stuff like that. So that actually pays off real quick.
Really quick. Yeah, I agree with that. So then let's talk a little bit about the other side, on the recruiting HR side. What was so difficult about that, and why didn't that go as smoothly as you would have wanted?
Well, we are in the recruitment business. Like our growth of the company solely depends on two things, like sales and recruitment. So if sales bring new open positions, then recruitment has to deliver, that we need to fill those up. When you're a no-name company, and this is one of the biggest challenges, is that you don't have a brand. Nobody really wants to work for you, because you cannot provide a confidence, and you really cannot, because you're not even able to pay yourself a salary. So you cannot hire the best recruiter on the market and pay them more than the others. And that was the big challenge that we had. So we had to use recruitment agencies. We had to use some sort of partners and blended bonus systems just to get the result done. Now, speaking of hiring, so we actually hired, the person from the larger company, one of the largest outsourcing companies we know, that actually was running their head of recruitment. So, this guy has, equity in the company, and that was something that actually convinced him to join us, even though he was not, extremely well paid, but he was getting like a market salary and equity. This is the reason we actually could get somebody who actually gather a team around him, and then basically this team started delivering results. So it took us a year and a half basically to get to where we wanted to be in terms of recruitment, but it was a big struggle, and we only last year, actually only last 12 months, we're very confident in the recruitment team. Whatever we throw their way, it gets closed right away.
Perfect. So That's a really good point. I think, we talked about it earlier, but it's really important the way that you differentiated yourself from others, for one, but then also internally, it allowed you to find someone that you were priced out of buying, really, right? You were not able to bring in a normal like this, let's call it a C-level HR executive, if you were just going dollar for dollar with the next company because they had a better reputation, been around longer, the confidence is there. But sweetening the pot with something else like equity, it aligns them with the company at so many different levels, because now they succeed more when the company succeeds more, and they can then transmit that into future employees because they're like, well, I took this, I did this, I bought into this. So they can speak firsthand to that and then transmit that into a team and build that team out because they're part of it, right? They're all part of something bigger than themselves.
Well, that's our philosophy. So we don't think that this company can solely go with only one or two co-founders, right? So basically, we want anyone in C-level to have the equity of a company because every stream or every branch in every C-level actually is actually a part of a critical infrastructure. So it's extremely, company will not be able to live without a salesperson or recruitment person, like the head of recruitment. So and we need champions on all of those levels. So that's basically what I have to say is that we want to share equity of our company with people who are making an impact. And the other point is actually I just recently finished reading a book called No Rules from Netflix. It's about the way they attract people. They could not compete with Google and Amazon for the talent. But what they did, they were able to hire only one and pay them more than market only for one person in the entire team. But this person was giving so much impact to the other team members that actually they had a feeling that this entire team is a champion team. So I think it's actually a very good method. If you're not willing to give away equity, you have to find at least one champion in one department and pay them more than the others would do. And this is how you kind of retain talent and actually affect the others.
Amazing. See, that's another great chunk of information. It's not, it doesn't always have to be one thing to sweeten the pot, whether that's equity, bonuses, the structure. It could be one rock star. And what I found, to piggyback off that, is I brought a rock star in from a company, and then they then already know their next 3 hires because they'll follow that person. So you instantly get a silo of, like you said, a champion team just from hiring that one really good person.
We had experience like that, and I think it was a very good investment. So we have invested in one recruiter that is, well paid, and but she was like a celebrity in the recruitment. So everybody knew that, like, well, if she's there, that means this company is doing something good.
It gives you more validation in the market, right?
Correct.
Perfect. So Victor, as we wrap up, thank you so much for your time. Can you give us, if somebody wants to reach out to you or find your company, what's the best way for them to do that?
Ideally, you'll want to find me on LinkedIn. That's the best way to communicate with me. So I'm Victor, Viktor, and Pryshlyak. Let's try to be careful here. It's Pryshlyak. Just find me on LinkedIn, or you can always email me. It's very simple. It's Victor, Victor, @usoftware.co. That's my email address.
And we'll make that very easy for people. We'll put the links right down below there so they can press a button and they don't have to worry about messing up your last name like I did. So thank you so much for your time, Victor.
Likewise, KC. It was good talking to you.
Cheers.